Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers live on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan and Jordan Binkley with you on this Monday evening. Happy to have all of you along with us for the ride. If you're new here on the channel, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. Again, we are live every Monday night at 8 Eastern Time. Really helps us out if you guys subscribe to the channel, and it helps you get close to all kinds of great Tennessee football content. And we will have all that rolling out for you in this off season. Got a couple things to get off our chest here, I guess, in the first little bit of the show. First and foremost, rest in peace, Jordan Allen, former Tennessee Vol. Sadly passed away over the weekend. I saw multiple former players. I think Corte Sapp was the one I saw on Twitter that brought that up. So very, very sad. And especially that the fact that it's happened in a few months of DeAndre Johnson's passing as well. So certainly thinking about all involved there.
Yeah, prayers out to his family and everyone close to him because, I mean, it's a sad situation whenever someone passes and you hate to see it, but surely he's in a better place.
Yeah. And then also, I would normally say I hope you guys are doing well. I know most of you guys are not doing well. At the very least, I hope you're surviving because it's been tough on all of us here in the state. This ice storm. I know there was a point in time in which Nashville held a quarter of the nation's power outages, and there's still tons of people without power, even near me here in Nashville. I was in that boat yesterday. It was terrible. Honestly, really, really terrible. I woke up, I think, around 6 a.m. to a limb crashing into my roof. Now, granted, it did not cave into the roof, but it's one of those things, and thankfully, Tennessee has not had the exploding trees problem like they have up in the Dakotas and Minnesota in this ice storm. The problem is we've had crumbling trees, or whatever you want to call these things, where the ice builds up on them. They can't withstand the pressure, then they eventually crumble. I live at the foot of a forest, and yesterday I was scraping ice off of my car, and I look up in the forest, and it's just like a guessing game. Which tree is going to fall down next? It's actually crazy what's happened from this thing. Seriously, one of the craziest winter storms I can ever remember. And I mean, just certainly on a level of impact just with the entire city. And I get it. We've had tornadoes rip through Nashville in the past, unfortunately. And those are no small matter. But, I mean, this is probably the highest impact event I can remember dating back to the Nashville flood. It's really that crazy with all these power outages. So certainly thinking about everybody that doesn't have power. If you do have power and you're in the Nashville area, we are super happy that you are here with us tonight. And big shout out to all the linemen out there replacing the power lines and fixing the power lines, getting everybody's life back to normal as quickly as possible.
Yeah, man, I underestimated this storm a lot. Like, I know everyone was like saying at first, or like, oh, that it'd be maybe like 2 feet or something like that. I didn't think that was going to be the case, but I mean, it ended up still being pretty bad. Like, I've seen on Facebook, multiple people have like holes through their roof. There's someone that I personally know that had a tree collapse on their house, like, and it like speared inside there. So I don't know what they're doing. They lost power. I haven't been able to leave my family's house for a while. I just know that there's been so many people affected out there, and shout out to like all the first responders, like all the people that, still have to go to work every day and have to get things done, because I mean, it's tough out there right now. I mean, I was taking my dog out to go use the bathroom. I think it was today or maybe yesterday. And as soon as I stepped outside, Thank God I was underneath like the siding of the house, but like a huge piece of ice just fell to the left of me. And I was like, I don't know what would have happened if that hit me in the head. Like, I'm sure I'd have been fine, but I mean, like, dang. And like, I've seen trees, like there's that image online, I think in Nashville, where there's like a whole bunch of trees that fell over. I mean, prayers to everybody out there, because I mean, it's definitely a tough time.
Yeah, it's bad because there's trees down. Multiple of our neighbors have trees down to the left and to the right of me. And of course, Jordan, you've been at my place. You know how there's trees up in my backyard. There's one that's like dangling down from the woods and bordering a tree in our yard. So that's obviously not good. And then there's another one that on the far left side of the house, I guess nearest my bedroom, that came crumbling onto the roof, and I think it impacted a portion of the gutter. Um, Certainly, there are people that have been impacted by worse than this, and I feel for those people. It's been pretty terrible, honestly. I know Williamson County schools are out until at least
Thursday,
Thursday
I think.
into Friday, so it's crazy out there, man. It's really scary. But not all is bad in the world here in Tennessee. Tennessee did defeat Alabama in basketball this weekend, 79-73 down in Tuscaloosa. That's a ranked win on the road. That's 5 straight over Nate Oates. And that was against a G Leaguer in Charles Bediako as well, a guy who was in college at Alabama while I was a junior in college. So he should be out of college anyway by this point. But because he only played 2 years at Alabama, he is out here trying to become eligible again. And he got an injunction to play this past weekend. Tennessee beat him, and probably good for everyone in college athletics that Tennessee won that game, because you talk about bad Pandora's boxes to open. That is one of the worst possible ones. I mean, football, I think it's a little bit different just because you're at a point where guys on the practice squad are generally there for a reason. Like, you're not going to see Mason Kinsey, Berry College legend, Tennessee Titans practice squad legend, suiting up for Alabama one day and the next year just because he didn't exhaust his eligibility at Berry. But NBA G League is a little bit of a different story. Those guys can play. And as David mentioned, that Bama judge just gave Bediako another 10-day injunction earlier this evening. Yeah, he's allowed to play 2 more games as a result of that. And wouldn't you find it shocking that that judge's wife is the same one who I believe is the lawyer in the case involving Darius Miles, the guy who assisted in the murder of that young woman in Tuscaloosa a couple years ago. And Nate Oates just swept the fact that Brandon Miller was involved in that under the rug entirely. So bit of a mess, bit of a mess down there in Tuscaloosa. But the good news is Tennessee won that game, and they've now won 5 straight against Nate Oates. So that's very, very nice.
Yeah, as you know, I haven't kept up with Tennessee basketball as much in previous years, but I was so shocked when I heard that news that Bediako, or whatever his name is, was going to come back and play. Because I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, at least in college football. I mean, I don't know what went into that ruling or whatever, but I mean, I hope that doesn't end up happening in college football, because I remember Bo Jackson ended up signing his career away basically by meeting with a baseball team, or at least that's what I think I remember from the 30 for 30 back in the day. So, I mean, hopefully we don't see anything like that in college football, because, I mean, I've always argued, I mean, you take one of these NFL players, even if they're on a practice squad, I mean, if they've been in the league for 6 or 7 years, I mean, I think that would be one of the best college football players in the country. You don't want to, I mean, college football is already having a mess as it is, with everything going on with the transfer portal and everything like that. And the thing that we need is for NFL guys to be coming back. But I mean, I agree with what happened with Arkansas and that baseball player. I mean, that's fine. I understand that, but don't let professional athletes in their own respected sport come back and play collegiate ball. That's just not fair.
No. And essentially what it is they got the temporary restraining order to go in his favor, but the NCAA could declare him ineligible in say another 2 weeks, and then he's completely out again. So you just never know. It's so weird. The NCAA has to double down at some point. They're just I'm really waiting for the day that they crumble, honestly. Because that organization has been corrupt for so long. And they've lost their teeth for the most part. We'll talk about it here in a second, but there's a fairly important eligibility ruling coming up on February 10th. How on earth are they denying that? And then they're allowing a dude to come back and play college basketball. They're condemning it, but they're not really taking any action against it. So I know it feels like we go into these debates about what college sports should and should not prioritize, and what it should and should not address here in the future. But it gets messy like this sometimes, and I don't know where it's going to stop.
Well, it definitely does seem like the NCAA is losing its power. I mean, take the college football games, for example. They're no longer called NCAA for a reason. And then, like it seems like they lose almost every single court case they go to now. I mean, I feel like it's just a ticking time bomb before it dissolves entirely, or at least for college football and everything. But yeah, there's some changes that need to be made for sure. And I don't really know what the solution is, to be honest.
It's not an impossibility, David, that this happens. But again, simple condemnation is not action at the moment. That's just how it feels watching all this stuff play out right now. But that's enough non-Tennessee football talk for the show. We did have to mention some of that stuff, though, just because of how impactful that is on a lot of us here tonight, myself included. So let's talk a little bit about what has happened over the weekend. There were actually 3 different transfer portal developments on Sunday, and I I'll admit I was without power for 12 hours yesterday, so I didn't see any of them when they happened. I had multiple people text me yesterday, and I got their text messages all within like a 6-hour period, sporadically, very, very sporadically, like trying to inform me that this happened. And it's just like, thanks for texting me. I can't respond back to you. But finally got to look over all this stuff. So again, I apologize if this show ends up a little bit less sound than some of the others, just because yesterday was very disorienting. Let's just say that at the very least. So I guess we'll go position by position here. There's only 3 of these guys, but anyway, Ian Duart, wide receiver and return man from Idaho State. He had 46 catches for 521 yards, 3 touchdowns last season. I think the likely use of this guy here in the future, though, has to be in the return game, though. You look at the return stats, 355 yards between punts and kickoffs. I know a lot of us we're quick to beat the Joakim Dodson drums after seeing the touchdown run in the Music City Bowl, but I do think that this is a good addition for Tennessee, especially because you kind of needed to get somebody that could do that with Gavin Freeman going out the door.
Yeah, I think he's probably is going to be Tennessee's guy moving forward, in at least in one aspect of it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a starter in kick return and punt return, but I mean, that's something Tennessee had to address, especially after losing Gavin Freeman, which was very unfortunate because I liked what I saw from him on film. I'm not as familiar with Duart. I mean, it's relatively new news, but I mean, I know that he could play a lot potentially for Tennessee, but I mean, that Josh Heupel doesn't like rotating receivers very much, but I mean, his return stats are pretty good. I mean, I know he did come from Idaho State, but he's kind of a smaller guy, which I kind of like for return men. I feel like it's easier to get lost out there and like you don't know what and kind of be leaky and maybe pull off a big return. I think some of ESPN stats on him may have been wrong because I was trying to do some research on Idaho State's website and they didn't have any mention of it. So I don't know if this is the case or not, but ESPN said that he had like a 94-yard punt return. I did not see that anywhere else, so I think it may have been a miss. But he's definitely got some athleticism. But I mean, as far as playing receiver, I don't think he's going to have many reps at Tennessee, especially because he was the 4th leading receiver on his team at Idaho State. But I did see that their quarterback threw for 3,000 yards, which I thought was pretty interesting.
100-yard game against a 10-win UNLV team. That's where I remember seeing Idaho State this season, was in that week 0 game against UNLV where they kept it like relatively competitive with Dan Mullen in his first game with the Running Rebels. So I think this is a good ad for Tennessee in the return game. Again, figures to be seen whether or not they want to use him as a wide receiver. But I think it's the same principle with what we were talking about with Freeman, or at least you mentioned this, Jordan, where it's like if you see this guy in your offense, you know what his purpose is, just to kind of be that, slot guy. And frankly, I just think the talent that Tennessee has at wide receiver, both proven and unproven at this point, would be a better play for them on the field than Duart offensively.
Yeah, and regardless of losing Brazel or anything like that, I still think Tennessee's not going to take much of a step back in the receiver room. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's some talented guys that are returning, like Braylon Staley. I expect him to have 1,000-yard season in 2026, and I mean, who knows what's going to happen to Tristan Keys? I mean, I'd like to think that he's going to get some solid playing time this year, but then again, I thought the same thing about Mike Matthews when he was a freshman and he didn't get as many reps as I thought. So who knows? But I do know that Josh Heupel is really trying to make some changes this go around. So I wouldn't be surprised if Keys got more reps than Matthews did.
Yeah, it's a new year and it's a new Josh Heupel. That has certainly been the case as we've gone into the offseason. But that was Tennessee's first edition over the weekend. Second edition, or well, I don't know what order these happened in because I didn't have power for 12 hours yesterday. But anyway, other offensive addition here. Tight end Drake Martinez from UT Martin. He comes in off a season in which he had 18 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown. I believe at this point you are just stashing tight end depth here with him coming in. I mean, you figure Ethan Davis is going to be the guy next season. If last season is any indication, and I think this will probably still be the case, and we'll discuss it here soon, but I think the staff likes Desan Brame as well. But now you've got two tight ends that you've added into the mix, and Drake Martinez and Trent Thomas to kind of help out with depth at that position.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, just basing it on the stats, I mean, it's kind of hard to find clips for like UT Martin's games, but I mean, I'm just assuming that Martinez, similarly to Trent Thomas, are for Tennessee more than anything, which is still useful. I mean, Tennessee's used packages before where they like lump in 2 or 3 tight ends and have them go in motion and everything. So, I mean, they could be valuable pieces to Tennessee, but I wouldn't expect them, going out there and having like 300 plus receiving yards this season. I mean, I feel like that's Ethan Davis's job. I think Ethan Davis is the clear starter, and he's definitely like the best pass catcher out of all of these tight ends. So, like you said, I think they're more depth pieces than anything.
Yeah. So that's what you've got at the tight end spot. Not as much of a breakdown there, but the tight ends that you've got, they may be better blockers. I know Thomas in particular will be a better blocker for this team to kind of fill in that role. But you've gotten 2 tight ends out of the transfer portal. And then one last one that David actually mentioned up here. Let me scroll up to it. Janaeus Richard coming from Miami. This guy has played 4 years of college football already between Vanderbilt and Miami. Started his career at Vanderbilt. Didn't play that much this season. I think I only saw 3 total tackles, but he's experienced. That obviously helps out a lot. 47 total tackles, I believe, between the schools. So he's a seasoned vet. I mean, a lot of these guys have not really they haven't really stuck out as anything more than depth pieces at this point, and that Tennessee's brought in at corner, and I think some of them will to an extent be like this when they come to Tennessee. But overall, you like any and all acquisitions you can get in the secondary, especially how after last season played out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richard's definitely the most talented player, or like the one with the most potential out of the other 2 that we mentioned. But I mean, I don't expect him to do too many crazy things. I mean, who knows? I mean, he was a former 4-star recruit at one point. And one thing I do like is the fact that he was from Vanderbilt initially, which is always nice, stealing one of your rival school's ex-players. But yeah, I think that, I mean, he's got a potential to start because I don't think Tennessee has, that elite of a cornerback group, to be honest. But I mean, I think Kalen Lee's probably got a good shot of getting reps this year. I would probably put him ahead of him, but I don't know if the reason why he didn't play, or the reason why Richard didn't play as much this year, is because he had an injury in 2024. I don't know exactly what it was, but I heard it was a right leg injury. So I'm assuming maybe an ACL. Apparently it was against Duke. But what I have seen from him, I mean, he seems to be fairly well in like press coverage and everything like that. And I know he's gotten at least 1 interception. Yeah, he got 1 interception. I mean, and he saw the field a little bit as a freshman at Vanderbilt. So, I mean, and he initially was recruited as a safety. So maybe he can mix and match back there. I mean, if anything happens to one of Tennessee's guys moving forward, maybe he can plug in and play well. But I mean, I know like as far as his college career has gone, that he's primarily been corner. So I don't know if safety is something that you'd really see him play at.
Yeah, it definitely feels like corner at this point is something you're going to see him play at Tennessee just because he's been more experienced there lately. But good to have a guy in your system that can do both. You like all the depth that you could get at this point, but that's all we got on transfers. Haven't been any more since we last met here. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and look into what you guys are starting to get into in the comments a little bit, which is a potential roster, what this roster will look like come fall or getting into the spring ball, really. Just at a glance from what we know, both out of the transfer portal and then looking into just everything we've seen in recruiting. So first, let's look at the offense here. Looking at quarterback again, February 10th is the big day. That's when we know about Joey Aguilar, if it's going to happen or not. Mark your calendars, but we'll see if it happens. If not, there is a plan in place where George McIntyre presumably will take over the role as your starting quarterback. If not him, it'll be Faison Brandon. Maybe those two battle it out in practice. Obviously, Josh Heupel has not made any kind of declaration about what Ryan Staub's status is on this team as a transfer. And I would assume, just looking at everything he's done and how he's been utilized in the past, you'd be looking at him more as a backup quarterback than you would a starter.
Yeah, I don't think Staub really has a chance at all of being Tennessee's starting quarterback. I mean, I could be proven wrong, but I mean, based on his statistics and how long he's played, I don't think he's going to be Tennessee's guy. I think he's just a serviceable backup. Just if chaos ensues and a couple of guys go down, then he would be a solid guy to at least, know the offense a little bit, be able to move things around. Maybe his experience would be able to carry him a little bit. But I mean, it's probably going to be George McIntyre's team. Like, I feel like by now we would have already known if Joey Aguilar was going to come back. I know the February 10th thing's going on. I mean, hopefully he can come back, because at this point, I think he'll be Tennessee's best option moving forward, especially with everything he was able to do last year and the fact that he was playing with the tumor, which we still don't know which arm that was in. But I mean, if it was in his throwing arm, then I would like to think that he could be even better than he was last season. And I thought that he played pretty well. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's second in single season passing yards in Tennessee history after last season. So, I mean, that's definitely something you shouldn't scoff at. I mean, he's definitely got some talent, and I think that Joey Aguilar was a pretty good leader. But I feel like it's more than likely going to be George McIntyre moving forward. But who knows? I mean, every once in a while, there's a true freshman that comes out here and shocks the world. And I liked everything that I've seen from Faison Brandon. I just don't know if Josh Heupel is going to trust him yet to be the starting guy. I mean, because even when Nico came in, I mean, he started as a redshirt freshman, not as a true freshman. I mean, I know he played a little bit in the bowl game and played particularly well, but I would imagine that this is George McIntyre's team.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, but you never know. It could get approved at this point. The Ole Miss folks are still holding out hope for Trinidad Chambliss, who's to say Tennessee shouldn't do the same. Interesting comment here from David. G-Max comp is Tyler Bray and Drew Lock, so I hope he puts up numbers like Lock. That would be fun, and that's a guy that Josh Heupel has coached, and Drew Lock as well. 2017 was a terrific year for him. 16, he was pretty good too. They just were not very good as a team that year. And then, of course, 18, he was good, but that was after Heupel had left for UCF at that point. And I agree with Michael here. If Aguilar comes back, expect the Tennessee stock to rise. I said last show, particularly if Aguilar comes back, buy stock in this team as a dark horse playoff contender if you do have that as your answer at quarterback. Because if so, I mean, you like what you have enough on the defensive end to where this team could really compete for something at the highest level of college football next season. So, and again, George McIntyre, you got to think about it too. We've talked about this in the show in the past where you know, and Nico is a name that is blasphemous to Tennessee fan ears at this point, but he was okay that season, showed some signs of potential, but it's Heupel's only team that's gone to a college football playoff at this point is the one with a good defense and a so-so offense. I don't think the offense will be like that just with the proven receiver talent that you got, especially with Staley and Matthews to this point. But I think that's something you have to at least look forward to with the defense being as good as it is. And yeah, this could easily happen. He could throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I don't know about 4,000 yards. I'll give you the 30 touchdowns. 4,000 is tough to hit. Like that's Drew Mestemaker at North Texas this year territory, and he was the leader in FBS pass yards by a wide margin. So, but no, it's at least fun to fantasize about what Tennessee could look like next season if Joey Aguilar were to come back. So that's quarterback. Again, we have all but one answer there. Moving over to running back, we know Deshaun Bishop is going to get the load. Javon Gordon figures to be your Star Thomas-esque back, at least this year. He could evolve into an even bigger role here in the future. Are we penciling in Dwan Morris as RB3, that other rotational running back that was kind of in the same role as Peyton Lewis this past season?
I think so. I mean, I think Morris is probably going to be the third guy. I mean, I liked what I saw from Javon Gordon, or at least statistically. Up here, I had it just a second ago. It's 500 rushing yards last season, and then like that was as a true freshman too. So I mean, he's going to have some time to develop and become an even better running back for Tennessee. Yeah, I think Morris is pretty likely to be the third guy on there. And the Deshaun Bishop, as long as he can stay healthy, I mean, he's going to be a pretty good running back for Tennessee. Yeah, and I've seen quite a bit of commenters about Justin Baker, and I haven't seen enough of him. I don't know. I mean, maybe he could be in there and have more reps than Morris, but I mean, based on what I saw last season, it seems like Heupel favors Morris, but who knows? I mean, I don't think anyone expected Deshaun Bishop to be in the position that he is in now. I mean, considering that he was a walk-on and everything. So you never know. But I mean, one thing I do know about Josh Heupel and his offenses is that running back play is always particularly good. I mean, you're not always going to have Dylan Sampson seasons. I mean, that's a rarity. I mean, it's the best rushing season that Tennessee's like ever had, arguably. But I mean, Tennessee's probably going to be fine with whoever they roll out there, but it's definitely Bishop's going to get the bulk of the carries.
Interesting point for Michael here. I'm actually hoping the RB rotation is smaller next year. They rotated too much in 25. You could make a case for that. I think Star at the beginning of the season really came on strong, not as strong on the back half, obviously. Bishop was good there at the beginning, and then I think it was maybe the Mississippi State game and then definitely the Arkansas game where he really showed the rest of the league, hey, I can really tear it up here at Tennessee. So I like what you got at running back. Tennessee's going to be just fine there. They have been fine under Josh Heupel. Not something you got to worry about this year. So that's running back. Moving over to wide receiver. And I think this is the question we all have. Michael mentioned it earlier here in the comments. I think spring between Jackson Smith and Keys could be interesting. Is Keys good enough with just the intangibles, the raw talent, to force his way into the starting lineup over a Travis Smith or a Rodarius Jackson? Is it one of those situations where, you got a guy that you're hitting 7th or 8th in your batting lineup, but he's just hitting the ball too well that he's forcing his way to the top? Is it something like that with Tristan Keys? I think that's one question that we're going to have answered come springtime.
I mean, I think Tristan Keys has got potential to be a star at Tennessee. And I mean, look at some of these other previous receivers at other schools, like Malachi Toney this season for Miami. Spectacular wide receiver as a freshman. Jeremiah Smith, even Ryan Williams did good in his first year. I mean, I know Josh Heupel likes to favor the experienced guys, but I mean, you're paying Tristan Keys a lot of money. Hopefully he doesn't get discouraged if he doesn't get many targets this season. But I mean, I think if if Josh Heupel gives him the chance, then I think that he could be, honestly, Tennessee's probably their second best receiver on the team besides Braylon Staley. Because, I mean, Mike Matthews, he put up good stats, but I mean, there was several times throughout last season where he just dropped the ball in crucial moments. And I don't know if I don't think he has the best hands out of some of these other receivers on the rosters. He's very talented. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you get the ball into Matthews's hands, I think that he's very dangerous, but it's getting it to his hands that's kind of the issue at times. And I don't think Tristan Keys would have that much of an issue.
Yeah. Although you never know, Mike Matthews, very similar ranking to Tristan Keys and as far as a prospect. Now, again, I think drops are more of a mental thing than anything. It's just like, to a certain degree, kickers, just getting it figured out and getting in the right headspace to try and avoid those, I think, is the important part there. But I wonder at what point, like, if he gets that straightened out, he could be a stud receiver for this team. But I think right now your most dependable option, just from everything we know at this point, has to be Braylon Staley. Obviously, the stats speak for themselves from this season, but you just look at the production he had when guys were, or at least other teams were kind of staring at Brazel and making sure he didn't get touches. Matthews is more of an athlete than a receiver. I said if Tennessee didn't get another quarterback out of the transfer portal, run Mike Matthews as a Wildcat quarterback, just like Kentucky did with Lynn Bowden in 2019. No, you don't want to be doing that. But I get what you mean. Mike Matthews is definitely very much an athlete. I'd forgotten about this, potentially being a safety prospect. I don't think you'd do that now. But,
yeah, not anymore.
No, not now, but that's an interesting possibility to consider had he decided to go that route. But we see Matthews get involved with jet sweeps. I know you had the one against Florida where he ran it, I think, for a first down near the red zone down there sometime in the first half. So, you've got options at wide receiver. That's the good thing. You should not be concerned with the receiver depth on this team. I say that, and the last time we went into a season not concerned about wide receiver depth for Tennessee ended up being kind of a down year for them. That, of course, was 2024. But, again, that might have to do with the quarterback that shall not be named more than the wide receivers themselves. Tight end, we already talked about a little bit with the acquisition of Drake Martinez. Kind of feels like you got your four there, your four deep at least. With Ethan Davis, I would assume Deshaun Brame would be your second most reliable targets as a tight end. Martinez and Thomas, I think, at this point are better blocking options and guys you want to use in the heavy packages. But nonetheless, good additions for Tennessee.
Yeah, similar to running back, I feel like this one's pretty clear cut. I mean, Ethan Davis is definitely the best pass catcher, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, I really liked what he started doing down the stretch of last season. And, I think Brame, he's more than likely, I mean, I think it's pretty dead set that he's going to be Tennessee's number 2 guy. And then I would say that Trent Thomas is probably 3A and Menez is 3B. I mean, I could see them getting equal share of reps, more as blocking types. But, I mean, as far as that goes, I really like Trent Thomas's size a lot. And like I've heard and seen, he's a pretty good blocker too. So, I mean, I would like to think that he would have the nod over Martinez in that situation. But I mean, I expect Ethan Davis to have a pretty solid season this year. And then just think about it. I mean, maybe Mike Matthews can step up when you got Ethan Davis out there as a threat. Then you got potentially Tristan Keys and Braylon Staley out there. And then I think Radarius Jackson is underrated too. I mean, Tennessee could have a couple of guys that could, I mean, it could be similar to last season where you got like a couple of guys that go over 500 yards receiving. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee was able to repeat some of his success, but I think it depends on the quarterback play more than anything, because I think we know the talents of these pass catchers, but can the quarterback be able to deliver it? I think George McIntyre can. We know Joey Aguilar can. If Joey Aguilar is the guy, then I think Tennessee's going to be have a pretty terrific offense, to be honest.
Yeah, terrific offense to go along with what should be a good defense. Here's another name that has not appeared on the radar in a while. Cole Harrison at tight end must be an afterthought since they decided to get two T's. I think the last sighting I had of Cole Harrison was one of those passes that George McIntyre threw in the New Mexico State game, I believe. I forget if it was the one where he just missed on the long ball or not. But yeah, that's another guy that I've not heard much of. I remember because it's funny because Tennessee is bringing in another guy in Luka Wolf at tight end who was originally committed to Cal. Cole Harrison, I think, was either committed or was going to commit to Cal on signing day, and then he flipped to Tennessee in 2023. It's crazy. We haven't even mentioned Cole Harrison in this conversation whatsoever. It's kind of wild that he's still there. One of those guys that you just tend to forget about after a while. And yes, good tight end, usually good for a young QB, and that's what we expect Ethan Davis to be. And here's the thing with Ethan Davis. He is somebody that this staff has been waiting to emerge as that primary threat at tight end. You weren't going to see him much in 2023 just because of what you had with Castles and why am I blanking on that guy's name? Jacob Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Jacob Warren were there at the time. And then, of course, the next year it was Kitzelman and Stays. Stays ends up transferring out because I think they just wanted to get Davis more touches, which I guess shout out Holden Stays for winning a national championship, even though he contributed far less for that team than he did at Tennessee. If championships are your goal, I guess that's a good thing. But if playing time is your goal and getting to the NFL, then I don't know if that was the best move. And then this year, Kitzelman ahead of Davis again. And I'm glad, and injuries, I think, forced the hand a little bit here, but I'm glad that Davis started to get some of those touches instead of Kitzelman.
Yeah, honestly, I think Kitzelman, I was not a huge fan of him this season. Like, I thought that he was going to be one of the best tight ends in the SEC coming into 2025. And I don't know, he inadvertently caused like 3 interceptions for Joey Aguilar, and it seemed like he was just dropping stuff left and right. I don't know what was going on with him. Maybe it was like what you mentioned with it being a mental game with some of these receivers. But Miles Kitzelman may have played his way out of like future NFL success the way that he performed this past season. And I think Ethan Davis is going to be a much better player for Tennessee than Kitzelman was.
All right, last thing on the offensive end, of course, is the offensive line. And for the most part, you're returning what you had there on the offensive line. So I'll take a stab at this right now. And again, this could change. But you've got Pendleton back, and he was your center for the majority of the season. Of course, you got Jesse Perry and Wendell Moy at guard in all likelihood. Tackle is where it gets interesting because you have David Sanders, who you are excited about this season, but, at times was – a little bit up and down as a freshman. Just that Oklahoma game, he had the big blown assignments on that R. Mason Thomas scoop and score early on in that game. But looking at who else will be up front, do you pencil in Ori Williams at tackle? Do you go with Gabriel Ascenda there? I would say Ori Williams probably just because he's been in college before. Again, where does Donovan Haslam and Sham Uvarov factor into all this stuff as potential depth pieces, maybe even starters? I mean, obviously the staff is high on Jesse Perry. This dude was a freshman All-American this year for a reason. And if Wendell Moy is healthier this season, then by all means, I think you got to stick him in there as well. So you have to like the state of this offensive line going into the season. I know the end of last season was not pretty in some games, particularly Oklahoma and Illinois, and I guess Alabama was another one to throw in that conversation as well. But you do have to like it going into this year, though, I think.
Yeah, I mean, around like I think like the first 7 games of the season, Tennessee had arguably one of the best offensive lines in the country. I mean, they were averaging like 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack per game. I mean, that is just probably the best performance I've ever seen from a Tennessee offensive line. But like you said, they kind of underperformed towards the end of the season, which was disappointing. But I mean, yeah, I think Tennessee's going to have just as much success, probably even more going into this season with, I mean, I think David Sanders, a lot of his issues, just one, him just being like so young. And then like 2, because he was so young, I mean, he may not have the strength there yet to be able to hang with some of these other defensive linemen that are in the SEC. But I think David Sanders has got a good shot to be the starting left tackle. I think that they will move Jesse Perry into the inside, which I like that he's capable of playing multiple positions. And I don't know if Tennessee was just going to get Ori Williams just to sit on the bench. So I feel like he's going to be the other tackle there. I feel like center is pretty clear cut with Pendleton. I mean, Umarov can get reps on a couple positions on the offensive line, but I don't expect him to start. But I mean, who knows? I mean, I didn't think David Sanders was going to get as much playing time as he did this season. So, I mean, who's to say that Gabriel Ascenda doesn't get some reps too? I'd hope that's not the case because I kind of like offensive line being able to mesh together more with like some familiar faces. And the fact that 18-year-olds blocking now in college football, some of these players could be like 24, 25 years old, like grown men out there going against what was just a high schooler like a couple months prior. Makes me a little bit nervous, but I mean, I think David Sanders is going to pick it up significantly this year. And I think Wendell Moy is a really good player as well. And I think that he's got capabilities to be an all SEC player.
Yeah, I think Sanders is a little different than Ascenda because Sanders, you knew he was a 5-star. I mean, just overall one of the highest rated recruits in Tennessee football history, just at least in the history of recruiting rankings, recruiting services, all that fun stuff. But you look at Ascenda, he is a 5-star, but he's not quite that high, highly rated of a prospect as in comparison to what Sanders was. So I think that one was a more logical day one start than Ascenda would be. But I am interested to see how they would use Ascenda this year because you've got several guys coming into this team. I mean, that will be depth pieces. I know Nick Mora is another name that we've seen thrown around on this show before. So you're at the very least deep on the offensive line, and that's good news. So you like what you got there going into 2026, I would have to say. Shifting over to the defense, we'll try to go a little quicker on this side of the football. Defensive line, trying to take my best stab at who the starters would be at this point. On the ends, I think you have to pencil in Chaz Coleman as one of them. It feels like a certainty at this point. I was checking a preseason magazine earlier today just to see what Tennessee had left of everybody on the ends. And surprisingly, there was one end where I think literally everybody either entered the transfer portal or graduated, which is kind of crazy. Like I think Herring and Ross were both listed on one end, and then Josephs was on the same end. So they're all gone now. Now, who will be on the other end for Tennessee is an interesting question because you bring in Jordan Norman out of the transfer portal. You also have a guy in Tyree Weathersby that's been in your program for a little while, got a little bit more involved this season. I'll be curious to see if they try to get him into the mix a little bit more so than in years past. I know this year they got him involved in it more. And the defensive tackle, I think, is another interesting one too, because I think you've got 4 guys that you will absolutely be playing at that position. The only one that I would say for sure is a starter on this team would have to be David Hobbs. I guess Xavier Gilliam probably is a starter at this point as well. But you look at the guys that you have coming in, or not coming in, but going into their sophomore seasons, I guess, and Isaiah Campbell and Ethan Utley, you expect them to make big jumps going into the year. We'll see how much the staff uses Nathan Robinson as well. That was a guy that appeared quite a bit more than I think some of us were expecting this season just because of depth stuff. So, okay. In the Mike Keith interview with Jim Knowles, said he learned from Gary Patterson's 4.25 and 3.35. 3.35, we need a dominant nose tackle. We don't have a guy over 3.10. Nose tackle needs to be over 3.25. That's a fair point, especially considering what Jim Knowles said about his defensive linemen. He wants the big guys up front. You don't have any super heavy guys, and you're replacing a lot going into this season too. Just as far as starters are concerned, with Moy and Eason both going out the door for graduation. A lot of them graduated this year, but I think that is a slight concern if you're looking at this team going into the future. But overall, I think you have some nice depth there, and guys that are in are in the mix that were more of depth pieces last year, like Utley and Campbell. I think will get more involved with this team.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of guys rotating for Tennessee's defensive line this season. I'm really excited to see what Chaz Coleman's got in his back pocket because I feel like he's got a solid chance to fill Josh Joseph's role. And I think that he's going to play pretty well for Tennessee. I think the other end's probably going to be Jordan Norman. I liked what I've seen from his stats. It does really suck losing Herring and Ross in particular, because I feel like he could have been a really good player for Tennessee moving forward. But defensive tackle, yeah, I mean, I think David Hobbs is for sure there along with Xavier Gilliam. I like the things that I've seen from Nathan Robinson. I think if Tennessee runs 4 defensive linemen up front, then they're gonna find some success. I worry about a little bit more of just the 3-3-5 concept, but I don't know. Tennessee's got a lot of linebackers too that are going to be able to contribute to this team. So it's going to be interesting to see who's playing when because, I mean, Tennessee could rotate a lot of linebackers in. They could rotate a lot of defensive linemen in. I think David Hobbs is probably going to be the best defensive lineman on the team, if not Chaz Coleman. But we'll have to wait and see with all of that. But I mean, they had some pretty nice pickups this go around. What Gilliam has to offer as well, too, because everything I've heard about him, he seems to be a pretty good player.
Yes, that linebacker depth, you can definitely do it with 3 linebackers in the mix. And I just think you have to wonder at this point who they will be. You have to figure Arion Carter and Amari Campbell are going to be 2 of them, right? Those are 2 guys that have to get involved just because of their experience. And having been, in the case of Campbell, at multiple programs and being very productive. And then you look at what you have back on this team. Maybe Spillman is the other one, and then you start using Perlotti. Maybe get some of the freshmen involved as rotational pieces with Rouse and White. Where on earth does T-Lander fit into this? Because they're going to use him somehow, much to the chagrin of some of you guys. But you're deep there. You're very, very deep there. And we've talked about it time and time again, especially with Arion Carter having committed or recommitted to Tennessee out of the transfer portal. You have to be ecstatic about what you've got there.
I mean, Tennessee's so deep at linebacker. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, considering they're kind of light at defensive end, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Perlotti getting up closer to the line of scrimmage a little bit more. I mean, just out of a necessity. But I think inside linebacker, the way that's going to go is it's definitely going to be Arion Carter and Amari Campbell. And I think that they're both going to excel pretty well. I mean, we already know what to expect from Arion Carter. I mean, he's the leader of Tennessee's defense. He's a fiery player. Like, he'll go out there and lay people out. And I expect him to have a really good season, but he may not have the stats that he normally has, considering that he's going to have to share some time with Campbell, who I think has potential to be just as good as him, if not better. So it'd be interesting to see how the linebacker group goes. But I mean, Tennessee's got some young guys that are pretty talented too coming in. I mean, I like what I've seen on tape of Braden Rouse, and then Zach Groves could be pretty good too. I mean, Tennessee's got some depth there and might have one of the best linebacker cores in the country, which is crazy to say, considering how linebacker was such a glaring issue last season. As long as Tennessee can wrap up and make tackles, which I think that they can with their new strength and conditioning coach coming in and maybe whipping them into shape more, Tennessee could really excel on defense. And I don't think Tennessee's going to struggle as much as they did in 2025.
Another mention here of Jaden Harmon and Jordan Burns. I'm not going to say I'd forgotten they were on the roster because I knew they were on the roster, but you just don't hear about them nearly as much as some of the other guys that we've discussed. But those are just 2 more names. You're looking at maybe the deepest linebacker room in the country, which is it's incredible what this group has gone from under Heupel. Because I mean, you think back to year 1, what do you have? Jeremy Banks and Aaron Beasley, and that was kind of it there.
Yeah, and Jeremy Banks had his own issues too. But I mean, like, yeah, this linebacker core has got to be Tennessee's deepest under Heupel. I mean, and honestly, one of the deeper linebacker cores that I've seen play at Tennessee. I mean, I like some of those linebacker duos back in the day. I mean, I liked what I saw from Kirkland. I liked what I saw from Majit and AJ Johnson. But I mean, it's been a while since I've been excited for Tennessee's linebacker core. And I think that they can't really go wrong with a lot of these guys here. And I feel like they're going to be rotated a lot throughout this season. And as they should be. I mean, especially if teams try to run up tempo and everything like that and try to tire out the defense, fine, do it. I mean, if we have to throw in TJ White and Braden Rouse, I mean, Tennessee is just not lacking at linebacker at all. And I think that they're going to take huge steps forward on defense in 2026.
Marion Dye, another name that we've not mentioned a ton on this show that could get more involved this season. I'd be interested to see what they could do with him, just because that's one we didn't see much of last season, except in some blowout games here and there. But that's one that I'd be fascinated to see how the staff approaches in 2026. Moving on to the secondary, you've got a lot of acquisitions in the secondary. You've only got two guys that were really important from last year's secondary coming back, as crazy as that sounds, with Ty Redmond at corner and then Idris Farouk at safety. You figure Ty Redmond will get pretty heavily involved at corner just from all the early returns that he's shown. As far as Farouk, I don't know. Because you look at the safeties that you got coming in, and it feels like he's a guy that could potentially slide to the back with everything that we know. But looking at corners, you figure Redmond's going to get involved. Will he start, I guess, is another question that we'll have to answer down the road, because I don't think there's a ton of guys out there that are more proven than him at this point, as crazy as that sounds. But you do like what you got there with Ty Redmond. Of course, Jadaeus Richard is the other one that we mentioned in this show. One that you could potentially see starting at corner. Of course, you got Isaiah Harge, Tevis Metcalf, Kayan Lee. The other one, I think of those three, Lee would be the one that could really compete as a starter, because Metcalf and Harge are a little less proven at this point, and I wonder if the staff is going to use Isaiah Harge as a two-way player like he was at Colorado. Star, I think at this point has to be Quay Moss, probably, just from what we know. And again, you're not getting much back at Star this season with Boo headed out, and Jalen McMurray, of course, headed out as well to the NFL draft. DeJuan Lane, a big pickup in the safety department in the secondary. I would expect him to probably get involved. TJ Metcalf as a starter as well. I guess the one guy that I'm interested in, and he could be a depth piece, and yeah, I mentioned Metcalf in safety probably as a starter. In fact, he will absolutely be a starter. How quickly does DJ Burks factor into this? Because he did a lot at Appalachian State last year. I know it's a little bit of a jump up, but we mentioned it last week. Jacoby Thomas was a jump up from MTSU, and he did just fine at safety for Tennessee in 2024. So that's another name you got to think about there. And then, okay, so that's all we got at safety to discuss, because the other one I was going to mention, if he factors in at all, how does Idris Farouk factor in? I don't know if he really gets involved at all this season. And then a couple other ones that I'm seeing here in the comments. You got Timothy Merritt, Trey Poteet. Poteet's really only meaningful snaps of football were in that Music City Bowl, and then Dylan Lewis and Sidney Walton are the other names that we're seeing in there. You got freshmen coming in. They're not rated any higher than 3 stars, though, so I don't know how much those guys see the field over some of these more proven talents that you got coming in the DB room.
Yeah, I think Farouk's definitely going to take a step back for Tennessee, which is unfortunate for him. But I mean, Tennessee's got some talented safeties that they've brought in here. I mean, Quay Moss has got potential to be a safety, but I think that he's going to be more of the star position. I think I mean, I agree with you, Tucker, that I think that TJ Metcalf is for sure going to be a starter out there. I'm just curious to know where Jim Knowles is going to go. Is he going to go with his guy in Lane at safety, or are they going to go with DJ Burks? Because I wouldn't be upset with either of those two. And maybe they could be rotational guys and switch switch out a little bit. But I mean, I kind of like Burks a lot. But I don't know, like I said, if Jim Knowles is going to favor Dewan Lane more. I think as far as corner goes, I think Ty Redmond's going to be the guy out there, the main primary corner. And I think Kayan Lee's going to get some meaningful reps too. I think that he's going to be an additional starter out there. But who knows? I mean, Richard, maybe if he's fully recovered from his injury in 2024, maybe he could be out there and get some meaningful reps too. But I do think it would be funny if Isaiah Harge ended up getting some reps at corner and on offense as well, because it'd be a nice slap in the face to Boo Carter after everything that he did to Tennessee, especially considering that he went to Colorado, left Tennessee to go to Colorado, and then Tennessee gets a Colorado guy in return that can potentially play both ways. I mean, just to be petty, I think it would be funny to give him some reps. I don't know if it would be the best case scenario, but I also think that Harge could play a little bit return man too, if necessary.
David brings this up in the comments. Joel Wyatt, I do remember being a 4-star. Now, yeah, because he would be a 4-star safety. Although I'm trying to remember, I thought part of the deal with him coming to Tennessee was that he was going to have to put on all the weight and move to the defensive line. I could be wrong about that. Maybe there's been a change of plans there. In fact, I would hope there's been a change of plans just with everything that Jim Knowles has said about wanting his defensive linemen to be bigger. Combe, unless he's received a bump in his rankings, I don't remember him being a 4-star. I do know that he was a 3-star. His tape looked good, but I don't know if he's been bumped up to a 4-star or not. Like, he's a borderline depending on which recruiting service you look at, although I know the common rule of thumb is go with the one that ranks him the highest. So good on you if you do that. Wonder if Farouk might get moved to backup star potentially. The fact that this guy has been involved in the defense before, and I know it's a different defensive coordinator, but the fact that he's been involved in it kind of makes you wonder if they want to use him at all, just as a guy that he is lost my train of thought for a second. If he's a guy that you want to feature in your defense somehow as a depth piece, but maybe not use as much as a starting piece, more of a rotational guy.
I mean, I think he probably will be and end up more of a rotational guy, but who knows? Maybe this lights a fire under his butt and he wants to come out here and really start competing during the offseason. And maybe he does wind up being Tennessee's safety. But I think with all the talent that Tennessee's brought in, I just don't see it, to be honest. I mean, I feel like there's a reason why they've been targeting safety so heavily in the portal. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Rook, but I mean, who knows how it'll end up going. But I think Tennessee's defensive back room is going to take a step up from what it was last season. I mean, it was unfortunate to see all the injury issues with Ricky Gibson and Jermon McCoy, because Tennessee could have had a much better defense and a much better secondary if they were on the field. It was a bad turn of events, but I think Tennessee has made quite a bit of positives here in the offseason that's going to help out moving forward. But going back to Joel Wyatt for a second, I mean, it was interesting watching his tape because, yeah, like I've seen that he was listed as safety a lot of the times. And yeah, maybe he wanted to play back there, but that's not the way that they used him in high school at all. Like there was very few reps that I saw him going out there dropping back deep. He seemed to be more of an outside linebacker, and I liked what I've seen from him in terms of athleticism and stuff. But I mean, like you mentioned, Tucker, with Jim Knowles favoring bigger defensive linemen and the fact that I didn't see him much in coverage on when I was watching his huddle film, I don't really know what his capabilities are at Tennessee.
Yeah, and he was used a little bit at wide receiver as well too in the I haven't watched any of his Oakland highlights, but the Webb Bell Buckle highlights, I did see that he was being used there a little bit. So an interesting piece that you could use. Maybe that's a guy you can plug in on special teams and, have him try to block some kicks for you on occasion because the guy can jump. We know that. I guess special teams, all you got there is Cooper Rambir at kicker. Ross is back as your punter, as we all know. Blake Howard is now your long snapper. And Ian Duarte is your return man. So that's all we got on special teams. No real thoughts there. Just saying all that stuff because we knew that would be the case, especially with Duarte committing yesterday. So that's all we got on the roster for next season. Looking forward to it, even though it is 7 months away, but looking forward to it nonetheless. One more thing that we do want to talk about before we get through the show is the next steps for some of these guys that have graduated from Tennessee or just declared for the NFL draft. And main reason I want to mention some of this stuff is because the Senior Bowl is this weekend down in Mobile, Alabama. Tennessee has 3 participants in the Senior Bowl this year: Colton Hood, Jalen McMurray, and Bryson Eason. And I would say of the 3, Hood is 100% going to get drafted. I don't know about the other 2, though. In fact, I'd probably side with them not getting drafted more than I would them being a late round pick.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you. Unfortunately, like I think Colton Hood is got potential to be a really good NFL player, and we'll see if he ends up being like a first or second round draft pick, like he's projected on some of these sites. But I mean, as far as like Eason's going and everything like that, I mean, who knows? I mean, sometimes there's people that step up in these Senior Bowls and ended up getting more looks. Like, who wasn't there like I think he was a center or an offensive lineman from like Chattanooga that the Patriots ended up picking up. I don't think anything ever happened with him, but I remember that he got all of that recognition because of the Senior Bowl. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe Bryson Eason can play lights out and then find his way in the NFL roster, but I think Colton Hood's probably the only one that gets drafted out of the bunch.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And spoiler alert, David, we're about to go over mock drafts here in just a second. And I think roughly half of them had him going as a first rounder, which is pretty impressive because there is a consensus first rounder in this group, and I think we all know who that is at this point, being Jermon McCoy. He is projected to go, I think, top 20 according to all of these sites that I was looking at today. So I have 6 different mock drafts that I was able to locate that have been published within the last day by different media outlets. Thought we'd just glance at these for a little bit. We won't look at these every single week just because they're always going to be coming out before the draft. But let's take a look at these this week just as a first-time exercise this offseason. Looking at this first one, this is from Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network. Has 2 Vols going in the first round. First one, as you can imagine, is Jermon McCoy. Top 10. At number 10 to the Cincinnati Bengals. 2 picks later, Colton Hood going at number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. To me, these are kind of 2 different versions of the same picks where you are drafting a guy that is going to a defense that's not been good. In fact, it's the main reason why that team's been let down. Like, there is not a bigger victim of poor roster construction in the NFL than Joe Burrow in his 6 years in the NFL. Like, they did not draft adequate protection for him up front, and he's gotten killed every single time he's gone out on the field. Like, he's basically only played half the games in his 6-year NFL career because he's missed 2 whole seasons with injury. Missed a lot of this season with injury too. And I get it. Some of that is him running, but, you can do him a favor there. But, specifically as it relates to the defense, you look back at last season, the Bengals went 9-8, if I'm not mistaken. They had one of the best offenses in the league. Their defense could not stop anything. So you need all the help you can get on that side of the ball, and good for them if they decide to draft somebody in the first round. I almost said good for them for drafting Jermon McCoy, but we got to pace ourselves there. Still got 3 months to go. And then Hood, the Cowboys, they were good enough offensively this season to run with anybody in the league, but again, couldn't stop anybody. And you're looking for new corners there, and that would be a nice get for the Cowboys, somebody like that in the first round.
Yeah, I really like Colton Hood going to the Cowboys because honestly, like what they've done in the past with some of their corners has been pretty impressive with Diggs. And I forget that other guy's name, but he had like 5 like pick sixes in like a season or something like that.
Deron Bland.
Yeah, Deron Bland. Like, I mean, Colton Hood, I think once the ball is in his hands, like if he picks it off, I mean, he's a threat. He's an absolute threat to take it to the house every single time. So I like him going to the Cowboys. McCoy going to the Bengals, I mean, I think that could help them out quite a bit. I think overall McCoy is a more technical corner than Colton Hood, but I think Colton Hood's got more of the athletic upside. So I could see them both being pretty good, and it's nice to see both of them being a potential first round draft picks. But I think there's another guy that, I mean, I think he was going to be a first round draft pick at one point, maybe not so much anymore, but I'm curious to see where Chris Brazzell ends up.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and we'll get to it here in just a second because I have found a 3-round mock draft, so that's first 2 days of the NFL draft. But I did see him being linked to the Bills potentially in one of them, one of the ESPN mocks. Like some people have at least mentioned the idea of it, which is interesting to me because I think there will be some wide receivers that go in this draft. Make no mistake about it. I think Mekhi Lemon from USC is certainly one you got to look at. I know there's been a couple others that have been mentioned at this point. So you're going to see at least one or two go. If it's Brazzell, I'd be stunned at this point, though. I do think he's a day 2 pick at the very worst. So, but that's the first fun comp here. McCoy reminds me of Darrelle Revis. That's a fun comp.
I would love it if that ended up being the case, but that's a once in a lifetime player right there.
Yeah, the ultimate one-year wonder for Tennessee at corner with Jermon McCoy. Wish it could have been 2, but that's just not what we got. Bleacher Nation, not Bleacher Report, Bleacher Nation. I have no idea who these people are until I found them today. Just saw mock drafts and clicked on this one. Jermon McCoy going a little bit further down to the Vikings at 18. And then you got Colton Hood just sliding into the first round barely at 32 overall, going to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, when you get drafted, you want to see the field quickly. And I think particularly when you get through the second and even into the 4th round, you're like, okay, where is this guy getting drafted? Can he see the field quickly if you're that guy getting drafted? But you know, you're a depth piece more than likely if you're drafted in the 4th round, sometimes even in the 3rd round. That said, these two guys would be going to solid defenses in the Vikings and Seahawks. And, you know, a part of me thinks it would be a good spot for them to land in because you look at what the Seahawks have been able to do this year defensively. They've at least put up similar production to that of the Legion of Boom. It's a big reason why they're in the Super Bowl now as we speak. And then the Vikings, like, how do you think they won 9 games this year? Wasn't old J.J. McCarthy carrying the team? Certainly not. 9 was not carrying that team. But sometimes going to a good defense, though, will help you get recognized. Looking at the NFC Championship game this past Sunday, Byron Young and Jalen McCullough both on that defense. Jalen McCullough flew under the radar basically his entire career at Tennessee. He was an okay safety. He was not a phenomenal safety at Tennessee for most of the time. Then he goes into Rams training camp, tears it up. They're all raving about him, and he's been a fixture in that defense so far. We knew the potential was there with Byron Young, and he's shown it so far in his career with the Rams, which is awesome. But I think there's something to be said for guys getting drafted by defenses like that, whether that's in the 1st round or even in the later rounds. And I think that's something we could see with both of those guys if they were to get drafted in those spots.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, it could be the best case scenario for both of them. I mean, especially to get a little bit more experience from some of these other talented defenders that would be their teammates. I mean, I know that he was getting torn up online, but Tariq Woolen was a pretty good corner, right? Or was, I guess, at least at one point. I haven't kept up with the NFL as much as I have in years past. But, I mean, I would like to see them go to a talented defense. And, like, I liked what you said about Jalen McCullough because I think he's one of those guys that, like, played at Tennessee that, like, it's like, where did this come from? Like, I thought the same thing with, like, Shy Tuttle and a couple of other guys that have played at Tennessee, especially, like, from the Butch Jones era. There was, like, so many, like, highly touted recruits that seemed like they underperformed at Tennessee. But as soon as they go to the NFL, it may take them a couple of years or so, but they end up shining. But I don't think anyone expected what McCullough would end up doing.
Okay, I've got 4 more here. 3 of them only had McCoy going. That's PFF, Fansided, and CBS from what I saw today. Funny because we mentioned McCullough and the Rams. Both PFF and Fansided had him going to the Rams, I think, at 13, which that would be a fun defense for Tennessee fans to watch. Jalen McCullough, Byron Young, and Jermon McCoy all playing on one defense. Sign me up for that. And then CBS had him going to the Vikings as well, so nothing really new there. A to Z Sports was the one that I found a 3-round mock it. And you got 4 Tennessee players going in this one. You got Jermon McCoy going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which has been a solid organization defensively, at least in this better run that they've had. I know they missed the playoffs this year, but they won a Super Bowl with a strong defense, and Todd Bowles is a good defensive mind as a head coach. So could be a good fit there potentially. And that's a team that I guess you could say this about everybody in the NFC South, but you're always going to be in the mix for the playoffs at this point just because that's how that division works. Usually the winner is one of the worst division winners in the NFL. Colton Hood going to the Seahawks at 32 again. And then some day 2 picks here. Number 48, Chris Brazzell going to the Atlanta Falcons. Now,
Ooh.
This is an interesting one because, and I'd have to go back and look. I don't know what Drake London's contract situation is looking like at the moment, but I feel like you would pretty quickly insert him into the mix as your receiver too, unless I'm missing somebody. I feel like you could insert him there. I know Kyle Pitts is around, and I guess Bijan Robinson is as well at running back, and he's going to get a lot of the touches. The one thing that would concern me about that is the Falcons have been really, really weird about this quarterback situation ever since Matt Ryan ended up with the Colts. Because what we've seen the last few years is them just trying to pencil in Ritter and I guess for a brief period Taylor Heineke to fill in those roles for the time being. And then they went out and got Kirk Cousins in free agency 1 year. It's like, all right, they're riding with Kirk Cousins. We'll see how this goes. And then that very same offseason, they drafted Michael Penix. That was a 2024 offseason. And yeah, Darnell Mooney is receiver 2. Funny you should mention that Darnell Mooney is receiver 2. Do you know where Darnell Mooney went to college, Jordan?
Cannot remember.
I'm going to Google this to make sure I'm correct here. I'm fairly certain that I know the answer to this question, though. Oh, yes, I do. He was a Tulane Green Wave member.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Chris Brazzell started his career at Tulane. So that's fun. But yeah, I think he could easily compete with that spot. And of course, they're two very different receivers too. Like you look at Mooney, he's a smaller, shiftier wide receiver. Whereas Brazzell, he stands 6'3", 6'4", and can go up and high point of football, but also he's got a lot of speed to him as well. So it brings in a little bit of versatility in that group. Now, you have I don't know if I'd call it similar, but you have, at least in stature, a similar receiver in Drake London in that offense. So that's something you got to think about. But I think it could be a very nice addition for the Falcons if Kirk or Michael Penix or whoever plays quarterback for them next year can straighten things out at least a little bit.
Yeah, that quarterback situation is interesting. Like, I feel like I haven't heard Kirk Cousins' name much recently, but he's one of those last few quarterbacks, like from around the time when I first started watching football. So, I mean, I was talking to my family the other day. I was like, whenever Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers retire, I think those are the last two quarterbacks that were playing since I started watching football in 2009. So it'll be sad to see all those guys end up retiring someday. But Drake London, I've always been a fan of his, and I think that could be a good position for Chris Brazzell to fit into. I mean, because all eyes are going to be on London more often than not. And then, as you mentioned, Bijan Robinson, he's pretty good running back. And from what I can remember, he is a pretty good pass catcher too. So it could create some opportunities for Chris Brazzell to go out there and get some meaningful reps. And I would like to think that he's got a better upside than Darnell Mooney, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I am a little biased watching him play at Tennessee, but I think it could be a good fit for him. But I mean, a quarterback, I don't know how much I believe in an older Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. I liked what he did in college. I don't know if he was ever going to be a good NFL quarterback.
We are young men, David. We're very young. I was born in the 2000s. Jordan was barely in the 1990s. Yes, we're young men here. It shows sometimes with some of our young man takes on Tennessee football. So that can show through the cracks sometimes. Michael says the Saints will be in the market for a big, strong receiver to pair across from Olave. And just judging by the comments here, Michael is pretty clearly a Saints fan. The New Orleans Vols things has died down a little bit because used to Tennessee had several down there. Now you got Kamara, who I don't know how much longer they're going to keep around, and then you got Alontae Taylor. They do really like Alontae Taylor down there. Now, I did actually see the Saints play the Titans this year. I was at that game. One of the 4 Titans games I've ever been to. The Saints won the game. And I'll tell you what, Tyler Shuck looked pretty good against the Titans. Keep in mind, he was going against a secondary that was maybe good enough to start on a CFL team, maybe an Arena Football League team. But, I think he could go into a good situation there if he was going to New Orleans. And again, like we mentioned with the Falcons and the Buccaneers, you're always going to be in at least a decent position to try and win the NFC South just because that league is, for most seasons, not one of the better ones in the NFL. Or at least the division is, not league. You get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I've always liked that the Saints have favored some of these Tennessee guys. I remember going back again, once I started watching football. I mean, I remember Robert Meacham back in the day for the Saints. I remember Drew Brees. Yeah, you remember that play where he threw that Drew Brees threw that interception, and then Robert Meacham stripped it out of that defender's hand and ran it back for a touchdown.
Jabari Greer, another former New Orleans Ball.
Yeah. Jabari Greer too. I mean, he was pretty good at times in the NFL. And to show my age again, y'all say that we're pretty young here in the comments. I'm starting to feel old because one of my take a Tennessee player out of the equation. One of my all-time favorite college football, Dante Stallworth's another good one, but one of my favorite college football players that I ever saw play live was Kellen Moore. And to this day, it still blows my mind that he's the Saints head coach because I was a huge fan of his when he was at Boise State.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that now, like Kelvin Shepherd being an up-and-coming coordinator in the NFL. Like that kind of makes me feel old because I do remember him playing in college. And again, and part of it is he had the kid while he was still in college. But the fact that Dre Kirkpatrick's kid is at Alabama is insane to me.
That blew my mind. I thought that was a mistype when I saw him when he was getting recruiting. I was like, what do you mean, Dre Kirkpatrick? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, he was at Alabama not that long ago, right? Apparently he had a kid young.
That I think Donald Driver and Anquan Bolden's kids are in college now too, which is insane to think about just because we did grow up watching those guys. Shy Tuttle, another former New Orleans Vol, Tennessee Titans practice squad legend, although nobody does well on the Titans. At least most people don't do well on the Titans. Ramel Keaton was on the Titans for like a week. Jim Bob Cooter is an NFL coordinator. Is he?
Yeah.
Is he with the Colts now?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's still with the Colts. Yeah. He's still with the Colts. It's funny that you mentioned mid-2000s quarterbacks at Tennessee because Bo Hardigree was another one on staff with the Titans this past year. Took over play calling duties when Amy Adams Strunk or whoever it was. I guess maybe Chad Brinker was like, hey, make somebody else do this. You're not good enough at the game management stuff. And sure enough, he did that. But I would assume Bo is probably not on staff with the Titans anymore.
Well, there's one thing I forgot to tell you, and I wish I would have brought this up when Tennessee was playing in the Music City Bowl. But I've told you before, Tucker, how when I was a kid, I went out of my way to try to add a whole bunch of former or like current college football players at the time on Facebook, right? Well, I didn't realize this when Tennessee was playing against Illinois. I was like, Aaron Henry. I was like, Aaron Henry, why does that name sound familiar? That's the Illinois defensive coordinator. Yeah, I added Aaron Henry on Facebook way back in the day, so I'm friends with Illinois defensive coordinator on Facebook. And I
That's
thought that
something.
was, yeah, dude. And I got a recommendation for Kirby Smart one time because I was like friends with like some former Georgia players, and he like popped up on there like I add him as a friend. I thought about it like before. My intrusive thoughts are like, what if I sent him a friend request? But Kirby Smart's not going to do nothing.
He's truly played his best NFL football for the Saints. Obviously, injury was a big factor there. Unfortunately, Heath is one of the larger busts of NFL quarterbacks. And yeah, we mentioned Alontae Taylor. He had a nice game against the Titans, from what I remember. I think he nearly had a pick in that game this season. So yeah, the New Orleans Vols thing has been going on for a little while, but always cool to see guys succeed down there. We've been talking about the New Orleans Vols so much that I haven't even gotten to this last pick in the 3-round mock. This is a pretty cool one. Another one of those that you look at and you say, hey, he's getting drafted by a good defense, and he's a day 2 pick. You could essentially get him in the mix early on, or at least have his name recognized early on because he's playing for arguably the best defense in the league. And that is Josh Josephs being mocked at, 62 overall to none other than the Denver Broncos.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that would be fun. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, Josh Josephs. I mean, I don't know where he's going to fall in the NFL draft, but I've been saying it for a while now. I think that he's going to have a career. I could be wrong, but I feel like he's going to have a career that could be similar to Byron Young, like where you're not expecting too much of him when he comes to the NFL and then he ends up shocking everybody. I think Josh Josephs is a really good player, and I think that he'll be even better in the NFL than he was at Tennessee. So, and if he goes to the Broncos with how good their defense was this year, ooh, wee, man. I mean, you can talk about Sack City for him. And he's pretty good at forcing fumbles, too, which reminds me of another player from way back, or 2 players from back in the day that I loved, being a Colts fan, and Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. Don't think that he's going to replicate their success, but I think Josh Josephs is going to have a pretty good NFL career.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back on Broncos players that are notable Tennessee guys. Obviously, you have to mention
Robert
Peyton
Ayers.
Conversation. Yeah, Robert Ayers was good for a while, and also good because of that that position. Just because you got another defensive lineman.
And
so
AJ Johnson, too. I mean, he got to start his career, man. I mean, it was unfortunate what happened to him. I mean, I think every Tennessee fan knew that he was going to be a good NFL player if he ever got the opportunity. And it was a shame that he had to start his career at 29 years old. But AJ Johnson, I mean, they called him the Beast for a reason.
I hope this is not the case for Josh's sake. He might be, though. Might be another Darrell Taylor, or Derek Barnett. I did see where Vrabel not so subtly said, yeah, we just released Darrell Taylor, which is not super kind, obviously. Derek Barnett, some guy was okay for Denver named Manning. Yeah. Other than Peyton Manning, there's not a ton of recent names other than Ayers. And, of course, as he was known then, Alexander Johnson, not A.J. Johnson for the Broncos. But, yeah, you had some pretty solid players out there. It would be fun to see another one do well out there in the Mile High City. So, and I guess while we're at it, congratulations to Josh Dobbs and Velus Jones. They will be competing for their first Super Bowl rings in 2 weekends. Josh Dobbs winning a Super Bowl would be about the only reason I would be happy. Ooh, Al Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Al Wilson played for the Broncos. Yeah, that Josh Dobbs winning a Super Bowl would be the only reason I'd be happy with the Patriots winning a Super Bowl. I would not enjoy it for any other reason. Just as a Titans fan, I would not want to see Mike Vrabel go and get a Super Bowl win after the Titans had fired him. That good for him if he does it, but it would make us all feel worse about ourselves, essentially.
I wouldn't be as upset with the Patriots win the Super Bowl because, I mean, I don't know how much – I don't think I've ever mentioned it on our podcast here, but I am one of those guys that really likes to discredit Tom Brady. Yep, everyone get your pitchforks and get all angry at me. I mean, I could go into a long conversation about that in the future, maybe on a different podcast. But I would like to see Drake May come in there and maybe try to replicate some of that success that Tom Brady did, and just make everyone forget about Brady a little bit.
We're Manning truthers on this show. All of us are.
Well, Peyton Manning didn't have like top 10. Peyton Manning didn't have top 10 starting field position every single year, one of the best offensive lines. And then, like, not to mention like Richard Seymour and all these defensive great guys. I mean, like, I don't know. I think Tom Brady came into, and I'm not trying to say he's not, like, he's definitely great. I mean, he was able to do a lot of great things, but I think he had a lot of surrounding pieces that helped inflate some of his numbers. And people say when he went to the Buccaneers too, that proved everything. No, he still had like one of the best defenses on the Buccaneers too, with like Jason Pierre-Paul and all of them. Like, I don't know. He's lucked into a lot of things, but he's also created a lot of good opportunities for himself.
Yeah, and I'd also say this as it relates to the Super Bowl. I don't like the fact that the Patriots had a little 3.
Oh no, Tucker. We may have lost Tucker, guys. I'll wait for a couple more seconds, but I think we may have lost him there. Let me see if he texted me. Oh, he's calling me now. Did you lose connection? Okay, so I think Tucker is gone now, but so yeah, we should probably wrap it up now. But thank you everybody for joining and watching today on Tennessee Volunteers Live. We appreciate everyone that was commenting, enjoying our little throwback conversations about former Vols players and everything like that. Everybody make sure to like the video. Make sure to check out our merch on the Voice of College Football website. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss a video. As you know, we'll be trying to come in every single Monday at 8 Eastern unless something else ends up happening. But we appreciate y'all tuning in each and every week, and we will see you guys next Monday.